Good morning and welcome to Trading European Open Live here at the LiveTradeRoom. And today now is Tuesday the 9th of October. So what we look to do during this particular session is to use our experience in these markets to identify high probability trading opportunities where we can execute and manage these trades with consistency in terms of our approach, but also discipline with regards to protecting our capital. With one aim, and that's to book in profit. So really we take an approach, it's very technical by its nature. We get in and out of these markets where we look to cut a loser short when we get those opportunities and look to let those winners run as best we can. So without further ado, if I can firstly just draw your attention to our risk warning. Please do, of course, familiarize yourselves with the risks involved in trading these markets. Okay, so the first thing we need to do really when we hit the trading desk is to have an understanding of potential market moving news. Obviously the reason why that's available is because we don't really want to get into certain trades knowing that there's a major news event shortly to follow, because markets can be very choppy during those events, and you certainly wouldn't be stacking the odds in your favor when you trade these markets. So for that reason, we'd like to just have a brief understanding of the news flow. And as we can see over the course of today's, and this is Tuesday, the 9th of October, you can see there's not an awful lot of news to consider. Let me also share with you yesterday's news. We had bank holidays in Japan, Canada, and US, so the markets were a little bit lighter in terms of volume. No additional news to consider, and it's really a similar story today. Lots of really small minor events, very unlikely to impact the direction of these markets to any great extent, and we do have a couple of central bankers speaking this afternoon and later on this evening, impacting the pound and the Canadian dollar. So the markets are always interested in what central bankers have to say. It's very unlikely that these speakers will shake the markets to any great extent, but of course we never do know. So from a news perspective, we've got the geopolitical events, the macro events, trade wars between the US and Canada, sanctions in Iran impacting the oil price, Brexit negotiations, issues with political issues in Europe, and obviously the fiscal position of Italy is now a little bit concerning, and it's impacting Greek banks again. So there's a lot of sort of global tailwinds that can impact these markets, obviously at any moment. So it does make it for slightly difficult conditions right now. So let's start with a brief run through, and we'll look to identify some of these high probability opportunities. Now the first one is, we'll start as we always do with the euro dollar. A break below yesterday's low would give us a nice move lower, and we're only 20 pips away from that level. So we've had the flush down, we've had sort of a little bit of consolidation for 4 days, and a break below yesterday's low would give us that high probability trade. So I think it's important that we at least kind of monitor this market and see how we get on with it. Moving along, I suppose the only thing that's concerning about this move here and what we'd be looking to trade is, if I just get up my pen real quick, is that from a price action perspective, we've already experienced what's called a structural failure, where you'd expect this market to continue to the downside. Now, it did briefly before pulling back a little bit and making a new low. So we're in this situation where we've got the potential for the next leg to the downside, with the view that things are now just beginning to change to the downside. So if I step back a little bit, you can see the overall trend is very much to the downside, certainly since this height up here, the 143, over the course of sort of mid-April. So we're clearly in this little bit of a downtrend move. We've had a bit of a resurgence, and now it looks like we're extending lower. So the pound is a tough one right now, just purely because of sort of Brexit negotiations and whether negotiations are going well and we might get a soft Brexit, or whether someone in Europe or even the UK for that matter coming out and saying there's going to be a no deal, and then that impacting the pound accordingly. So it's very much open to political statements that are made in these markets. So it's worth looking at the price action. We might come back to it. So yesterday we had a bit of selling coming in to the dollar yen. Pull back above the 113.20 level, so that's quite important. And it might create a little bit of a floor in this market. So maybe we'll get the next leg to the upside. I would imagine there's a couple of easier opportunities really that we can focus on. The dollar is still extending higher against the Swiss, so this is a really strong move to the upside. We're talking about 400 pips now. So a really strong move, but from a technical perspective, it's just purely a pullback. So there's not an awful lot we need to do right now. So just to give you a bit of an understanding, if we get this market just coming back, making a low, then there's opportunities to suggest maybe buying it, or maybe look to wait for the breakout trade once we get that confirmed break. So right now we're just pulling back off the lows. So we should be getting a move lower at some point, and when that happens, that will give us some opportunities to make the decisions. But right now, it doesn't give us the best of opportunities. And dollar CAD yesterday was threatening to just sell off a little bit and maybe just roll over to the downside. We are in a little mini downtrend, as you can see, for the last few months. So very likely to run into a bit of resistance at these highs. So we'd expect this market to continue lower. Aussie dollar. Yesterday a bit of buying came in. Today maybe a little bit of selling is beginning to kick in as well. So we just got a weekly low to negotiate. We had this market bounced off that level now, the 70.42 level. As you can see, so we're getting a bit of weakness beginning to creep back in. That could certainly give us an opportunity below the 70.63 level. What we might do is just monitor it over the course of the morning session and just see if it gives us that strong move we think it can give us. So today's low has just bounced off that level. It'd be interesting to see if a low is created off the 6400 or 6431, or if we get a constructive breakthrough that level. Clearly in a strong downtrend. So what we'll do is we'll keep a close eye on these levels just sitting in here. I want to see if this market can close below that weekly level. And if we can start trading below that level, it could give us a good opportunity to sell that market. So yesterday was again one of those days. We took 3 small losing trades and 1 big winning trade. So the success rate was only 25% yesterday, but we effectively broke even for the session. So it was strong moves, strong directional moves during the morning session in some of those markets, and then strong pullbacks. In fact, a lot of those moves actually occurred in the Asian session. We got a bit of continuation and then strong pullbacks for the remainder of the day, really. So we're seeing this market short term stay below the weekly low, which could give us a bit of an opportunity for this market to push lower. So we can have a look at this market. We will come back to this. Just finishing the currencies, we're in a bit of a sideways moving pattern for the pound yen. And as you can see, against the euro yen, we've had a strong pullback off these highs, with the potential for some strength actually creeping back in around these levels. But there's certainly better opportunities in these markets. Looking at the gold, we're currently in this market to the downside. So this green and red level is our daily time frame trade. So we really want to see if this market can start attacking the 1181. If that's the case and we get a break, we're likely to get a nice flush lower. So we're staying in it for that reason. But really, from an intraday perspective, we pretty much need to see some selling starting to creep in. So we'll keep an eye on that over the course of the morning session. The oil market, a bit of strength is as you can see, it's beginning to creep in. So we'd like to have a look at the oil markets. So we'll have a look at these in the smaller time frames. Similar situation here. We look at the US oil, we'll take that trade and see what we can do with it. A lot of choppy price action yesterday in the US equity markets. So we had a strong move lower for most of the day, and then a strong pullback in the latter part of the US session. So those are the market conditions. We just need to see a little bit more from these markets and see if we can get in and out of them. UK 100, it's really pushing lower. We do have this level sitting in here, which is the 72. It's a little bit higher than that. The 72.20 level, and what that represents if we get a break is a structural failure at that level. So it's presented a couple of good opportunities for us, and this is your breakout trade. So we have a directional bias which is to the downside, and a break below the 72.20 level constitutes a structural failure, pushing prices lower. Okay, so that's the next opportunity. So we're going to have a look at this on a smaller time frame as well. And then finally, the Euro stocks, really pushing lower. We're not quite at the same level as the FTSE, which would be down here at the 32.71. So we've got a little bit to go, but we would expect it starting to creep lower. So I suppose the FTSE market is just going to give us that better opportunity to trade. So let's go ahead and create our trade plan for the session. So really, we've bounced off this low, and we're attempting to obviously squeeze below. So we would need, that was last night's close, just at this level in here, and this morning we're gapping lower, and just looks like we're slowly pushing to the downside. So we're only interested, let me see if I can, so we'll put the FTSE market on the bottom right hand corner. We're only really interested in selling below the 72.20 level, just purely for consistency reasons. So that's the gold, sorry, that's the FTSE market. US oil, we place this market top right. Let's see what opportunities this will give us. So we've had these flushes to the downside. We've had structural failures now back to the upside. So we just want to see where the next kind of level would kick in. It's just a little bit below these current prices. So this is a level of resistance preventing prices from pushing higher until we get and we see our breakout trade to the upside, and now we're getting the pullback. So a little movement around here might give us an opportunity to take it to the upside over the course of the session. So one to watch. And yeah, the oil market is top right, FTSE bottom left. And now we've got a couple of currency pairs. We'll put the euro pound trade. So we're clearly getting a little bit of pound strength over the euro, and that's probably in keeping with the euro dollar. So we're still looking for this market to just squeeze lower and break out of this area from here. And it's already bounced off the weekly low, which is the 1465. So we just need to see this market do a little bit more. So that's selling off, and I suppose the price action in the pound dollar is not selling off as much, but we are getting this extended move lower as we speak. So it's a long period of consolidation, a relatively small stop loss. We're at the 87.70. Let me just take note of these highs in here. 87.81. So this is our first close beneath this level. So I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll keep an eye on this low here, and if we get a break of that, we'll get into it to the downside and place a stop loss at the 87.81 to see if we get some further continuation to the downside. So we could be very close to getting into the euro pound. And the only reason why I say that is we look at this 15-minute candlestick and we can see the price bouncing off the 87.69, and it's actually failed to close beneath its low. So we can just zoom in a little bit more there for you. So we can just see if we get a close now. We've got a few more minutes before we potentially get that close to the downside. We can certainly look at it on a smaller time frame. So if we get a close and get some continuation, we'll get into it. Want to make sure we trade at the correct size for our capital that we have available. So we should get the close any second now. So there's the close below our level 87.69. So now we'll see if we get some continuation. If we so, we'll get into it. Okay, so while we're just looking at this market, we can see that there's a bit of pound strength, and because we want to trade strength versus weakness, it would just make a little bit more sense to look closely at the euro dollar if we get that rollover to the downside. We still need this market to break below the 14.59. So let's monitor this market and see how we get on with it. So now we're potentially getting this roll to the downside. So we've got the US oil market really moving with strength to the 74, 76 roughly. So we've got the pullback now. Now we'll see if we get a bit of turnaround price action, and we'll see if we can get into it. Okay, there we go. So we can sell this market. So at the 87.67 level. So we can probably have a 14 pip, 15 pip stop loss on this market. Let's see if we get a little bit of a thrust further to the downside. So this gap looks like a lot, but in actual fact it's kind of a 2 pip range between the 87.69 and the 87.67. So we're now in the euro pound to the downside, so let's see if we get some continuation in that. We're seeing the price just respect the 74.76. So it's the oil market next that we can look at, just rolling over off the highs. This level can become resistance, and we're not too far away from the $75 level, but we are in a bullish market now today, off the back of yesterday's selling, and the overall trend is very much to the upside. So we're getting a lot of that weight pushed in behind us. But let's see, we're looking at a 5-minute time frame, so we can certainly make these decisions on a 5-minute time frame. As always, do feel free to post any comments you might have, or if there's anything that I've mentioned that perhaps you're not too sure about, or perhaps you even have some trade ideas that you'd like us to look at, then please do post it into your chat box, and I'll be more than happy to answer any questions you might have. So we currently have a little bit of a doji candlestick here in the oil market. So we've had an extension to the upside, a bit of a pullback, and now it's this level we're looking at. And we'll see now on the close in just a few seconds. And if we get continuation, we might even buy the pullback. Okay. So you can see that the euro dollar is really struggling to break below that weekly level. It's clearly providing support right now. That's why it's in our interest to actually sell it below the 14.59 and not get into it prior to that level. Okay, it took a little while for that market to close. So now you see if we get a bit of bullish price action creeping in, that we can look to take this to the upside. So we've just got a straightforward pullback, bit of price action here in the US oil market. So now we'll just test the conviction of this market to push higher. There's a few other markets that are kind of worth keeping an eye on. Not much happening there in the Aussie dollar. Same New Zealand dollar. Pound yen, nothing. And the gold market, see if that's starting to roll over yet, which it isn't. A little potential, isn't there, for these markets to just squeeze lower. The US equities, we'll keep a close eye on them. Euro stocks, not much there, so not much to really work with, to be fair. So actually some more selling is beginning to creep into the US oil market. Currently experiencing a 5 pip pullback. After a long period of just slow grinding price action lower. So this is the breakout trade, so we're clearly not getting the price action. In fact, yeah, that is seen the oil market just break below that level now, the 74.76, so it's still in play, but We'll see where the low ends up. Let me see. So now we're beginning to get a bit of bearish engulfing starting to kick in. Okay, so a bit of a strong move to the upside, which is now retraced a little bit in the oil market. So all that does is just put a little question mark in our mind, and let's see how this price action unfolds over the next 2 minutes, and we'll see where the close is and see how this market reacts then. So we'll get the close very, very shortly in the US oil market. And then it just depends whether we get that continuation or not. So there's the close, there's the open. We've had the strong pullback trade. What we would have is a really sort of tight stop loss in this market. So let's see if the oil market can actually break above the 74.84. If so, we'll get into the upside. Really strong pullback. Well, when I say really strong, we're talking about 7 pips off its lows. But we do have a really strong level of resistance preventing prices from pushing higher just above it. So it's clearly looking to kind of flirt with that level again. And let's see if we start getting that flush further lower. This might be a trade that we might need to keep for, you know, part of the day. So we're not getting much volatility in these markets just yet. Right, so we're getting the potential sort of move to the upside. Let's just have a quick look at this on a So the oil market will close now in just a few seconds. I suppose the advantage that technical analysis can give you in your understanding of Japanese candlesticks is that if you look at a 5-minute time frame, you can see by looking at these candlesticks that the appetite to the upside is not full throttle. We're getting the move higher, and then there's some sellers coming in, so prices are creeping lower, and that happens over a 10-minute period, which is actually quite significant. You would definitely like to see, if this market is continuing higher, you'd like to see more volatility to the upside, more of an explosive move higher. Clearly not getting that opportunity. The euro pound, the euro is now strengthening against the pound. We've got quite a small stop loss on it, so this is one that we're probably going to look to hold for as long as we can, I guess. And it's got a lot of work to do to take us out of this trade, so let's see how this market performs around this kind of level here. And when we place our stop in these markets, that is our line in the sand. That is our price at which we become too impatient. If price doesn't perform, then we consistently make sure that we don't commit ourselves to that trade for any longer than is necessary. And that's the same with all of our trades. So the euro is really strengthening now against the so that's a pretty significant blowout to the downside. So we had a stop loss placed above that level. So I don't know. We might find out shortly if there's any economic news that has impacted this trade. I suppose therein lies the issues that we have with trading the euro pound. Or maybe it's just pure manipulation, perhaps. We don't know. So we kind of have an issue now as well with the US oil market. So it's kind of struggling to break above that 74.84 level. So So we had like a 1 minute, just a really decent spike to the upside. And you can see the importance of that spike, because if I zoom in a little bit more than that. So the reason why this spike is significant, because we've had over a 1 minute period, we've had a spike which is probably the same kind of distance as trading conditions over the course of I'm not sure how many hours that would be, but certainly 9 plus 5, probably 14 hours. We've had a similar range that we've now experienced in, roughly speaking, in the space of about 2 or 3 minutes. So what that is now suggesting is that opportunities to sell this market for now no longer exist. So so perhaps some statement has been made, some comment to the market potentially. The IMF cuts forecast for global growth as trade war takes toll. Okay. If anyone does see any news headline, perhaps let us know. Right, so it's probably a bit of pound selling then by the looks of it. Let me get up the chart. Yeah, so this has shot lower. Okay. A little bit messy there. Good morning, Connor. Renko, yeah, we had the Economics Institute believes German companies would be in long-term respond to a hard Brexit scenario with elevated prices and shifts of their trade routes. Yeah, that would be obviously bad news then for the British pound, you would assume. Thanks for that, guys. Appreciate it. So elevated prices is obviously, premium being placed on those products because of it, and that would directly impact potential sort of UK demand for those products and services. So that's likely to, obviously, if you increase price, it can affect demand for that product. So there is market forces leaning on that, which can actually work both ways. But clearly, if that is the news event, then clearly this market has the potential to start squeezing further lower. It's sort of quite messy price action, really. Okay, we're firmly contained between these highs and these lows, and we're kind of in the middle, really, middle range. So there's a little bit of funneling. That's probably not the best drawing I could have done. So let's perhaps see what direction we get this breakout to the upside, or maybe even a constructive breakout to the downside. So let's see how the price behaves kind of inside this area. And then if we just then that's a really strong structural failure to the downside. So we've potentially got a couple of options in this market here as things currently stand. Okay, so we're actually getting a bit of a rollover to the downside. So this now represents a structural failure to the downside, and we were needing this price to break with volatility to the upside. You can see that we didn't quite get this first candlestick in here, creates a bit of a question mark. Then you see the second one, the third one, very little follow through, fourth one, and then we get the flush lower. So it might create a bit of a W formation. If so, we might look to get into it again. So there's definitely a couple of options there. The euro now is strengthening against the pound. I'm just conscious of the time, guys. We'll have to end this live trade room here through our YouTube channel and switch over to the live trade room. Please do read the information below if you are interested in joining us here at the live trade room. Live traders trading with real capital every day. And we're currently offering a 2-week free trial, so please do take advantage of that. No commitment, no obligation of any kind. And then if you decide to join us, it's just $9.99 per calendar month. So hopefully you will find that incredible value to access over 76 live trade rooms per month. So a lot of content there for you. We post a lot of it online as well in your members area. So hopefully just a really strong trading experience. Feel free to give us a thumbs up if you possibly can for this video. And subscribe to our YouTube channel, and you can also connect with us through Facebook, Instagram, Twitter and LinkedIn. The details are all there up on screen. So all that's left for me to do now is to thank you very much for joining us. Do take care. Thanks Renko for your input as well. Good to see you, Connor. I'm sure we'll see you over in the live trade room shortly. So from everyone here, take care and bye for now.